Hey everyone, I'm Kane, and welcome to the fourth episode of Uneasy Money, because what happens on chain never stays on chain. I'm here with Luca, CEO of Pudgy Penguins, and Tay from MetaMask. Before we begin, here's a word from our sponsors that make the show possible.
Are you a builder who needs to add on-chain trading to your product? The Uniswap Trading API from Uniswap Labs offers plug-and-play access to some of the deepest liquidity in crypto. It's on-chain execution at an enterprise level. More liquidity, less complexity. Visit hub.uniswap.org to learn more.
One quick thing before we start, nothing you hear on Uneasy Money is financial advice. We're just three builders talking about what's happening on chain, and we want you to always do your own research before aping in. All right, let's get into it today. We got a big day for Ethereum today. Fusaka goes live today. It feels to me, before we go into all of the things, because there's a bunch of things that are going live with this upgrade, but it feels to me like the shipping cadence of Ethereum has gotten so much faster now that we almost don't even notice these upgrades. Like they just roll through like every couple of months, and we're like, like there was a period of time where it was like a year would go by, and we're like, oh, we're desperate for 1559. Like, when will it happen? And now it's like, oh God, another Ethereum upgrade. So I don't know about you guys, but the shipping cadence feels much, much faster these days.
Yeah, no, 100%. And also it feels different. Like, I think there's still a lot of big things that get very heavily debated, and people really, really, really want, and all these things. But it just feels like what's being shipped and I guess like the type of debate is different. It's much more
More,
productive.
more
Say.
commercial, maybe. I don't, more aware of the market. I don't know. Yeah,
It's
it's a different
pretty,
vibe. Vibes are
yeah.
different for sure. Like, there's no question. So maybe let's talk about it. I was actually a bit blindsided myself. On Monday, I was talking to a couple of our engineers, and one of them was like, this is like the SEPCA curve one where you get passkeys natively on chain, which has been on Polygon and I think a couple of L2s for a while. But I remember in 2023, we were talking about this because Infinex was looking at, would we use passkeys? Would we use passwords? Like, how are we going to do this? And, 2 years later, it was one of those ones where I'm like, this is never going to ship. Like, there's no way. Like, this is just going to sit there forever. We're never going to ship passkeys on chain, but it seems like it's here. Which is pretty exciting, because I think, from a UX perspective, once we figure out exactly how to dial this in, that's going to be pretty amazing. I think the other thing is, maybe this is something that no one was asking for, but blob space is going to increase by 8x. do we do
Yay!
we need more do we need more blobs? Like, what are we doing here? Why do we have so many blobs? This is yeah. So we can talk about scalability and what's happening with blob space, and dig into that a little bit, because I think it's a very interesting market dynamic that we keep producing more block space, yet are not consuming enough of it. But let's talk about that in a second. So I think the other thing that's interesting about the blob space conversation is, Ethereum gas hit like zero point 0.3 Gwei. And I remember in, like, I want to say it was like April or May of 2018, we saw Gwei go under one. I don't know what the like all-time low of Gwei is, but we've got to be getting close here. Um, so this
It
combination
is.
of like L2 proliferation. We have so many L2s, and we have scaled mainnet, like, actually to a crate. Like, we've ripped out so many transactions off mainnet. We've scaled mainnet simultaneously. We've scaled blob space for L2s, and we now have like almost like gas-free transactions on Ethereum mainnet. It's pretty wild.
No, it is. And specifically on the gas one, the gas has always been super interesting because um it's always been treated as a consequence of the block space, which it is to a certain extent. But there's actually like a huge number of factors that go into like what the gas price is, meaning like how expensive transactions are. And I think partially due to just how many L2s there are, and partially due to the overall demand of the market, but also partially due to people just being more aware of the gas price. All the wallets and all the interfaces, all the CLI tools have gotten so much better at really driving down the gas price for end users. And I just feel like it's never, it's like when you look at the charts, it's like dropped off, but we haven't seen that. I'm waiting for it to be seen with end users like realizing like what an unlock this
How
is.
cheap. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty great. Like, I mean, we must be getting into the vicinity for, 21,000 gas, right? For maybe like to take a step back for a second. So, you know, the entire reason why we went to this L2 scaling roadmap was that the L1 was so congested, right?
Mhm.
And why was the L1 congested? The L1 was congested because we had so many different transactions, and DeFi composability basically broke the L1. We had all of these different DeFi protocols that were all connected to each other, and if you touched one of them, you'd get this cascading chain of transactions that would kind of go on to infinity and then curl back on itself and like just start again, right? So if prices were ever moving, you just had this like insane number of transactions that would kind of cascade through because of all the L1s. We moved a lot of that liquidity off to L2s. We did a bunch of things that have scaled the L1, and we're now in this situation where like for an ETH transaction, it must be down to cents now. I haven't looked at it in a while, but like we're in the cents range, which when you think about coming out of the bear market in 2023, Solana's, Ethereum still had scalability issues back then. Transactions were still expensive. And if you go back to DeFi Summer, it used to be, I swear to you, you will not believe this, but it used to be $500 to claim your SNX staking rewards every week on mainnet.
It was
The
a real
transaction
blocker. Like it was
was
actually a
insane.
blocker.
$500. Like, what are we like? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Luca, you're very quiet there. I don't know if you're sitting here contemplating your life choices or what's going on, but are you gonna move back to mainnet? What's happening? What's going on?
Do it.
No, I mean, this is probably not my like field of expertise. I'd probably say cheaper transactions good. I think a huge reason why we didn't deploy Pengu on Ethereum mainnet at the time was because it just didn't make sense. The transactions were too expensive. And even then, it was trending obviously lower, but now it's like getting incredibly low. It's like to the point of feasibility. So, great moment for Ethereum. The only thing I can speak to about Ethereum is like, 8 months ago, 6 months ago, they started having like a founder success team. And that was like a huge breakthrough to me. So you might be looking at like the actual chain metrics. I'm looking at the fact that there's like a founder success team.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Like that's, I spent 3 years working, basically only on Ethereum and didn't even get an acknowledgement from anybody over there. Now I have like a direct line with somebody who will like retweet my tweets. Like, and that's like awesome.
It's much better. I agree with that. I think it's much better. The interesting thing, this is not the first time we've seen this movie. We've seen this movie before where transactions get cheap and then there is this kind of induced demand, but it has been a while now. Like, what would be a catalyst for Ethereum prices going up, right? Obviously, more transactions is one thing. What we haven't seen are people building contracts that like consume more gas, like not necessarily intentionally, but like more complexity, right? So on Ethereum, the more computation, the whole point of the gas pricing is that it's about computation. This is a scarce, what used to be a scarce resource, now it's an abundant resource. So we have an abundant computational resource, right, that we're trying to price in real time, and we have too much of it. So I'm surprised that people aren't like doing crazy stuff, like putting I don't know, like putting games on chain like someone's gonna do something crazy that's gonna like cause gas to spike again for sure, but it just hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what we do about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Luca's point is part of it, right? It's like these L2s are all, and like even all L1s are all competing for the builders as they should be. And so, you know, when you're making choices about where to ship, that plays a big role. I think the other thing is that people it probably hasn't fully set in yet just how cheap L1 is. So, like, you know, I think that'll take some time. But I do think it's interesting. Like, it's not just, it's like there's this whole series of things that have all come together to unlock the current state, right? Like, it also used to be that people would like just spam transactions nonstop because that's how you would like win.
Totally.
And then
Yeah.
now with like Flashbots and MEV and like how that whole market has evolved, it's just a completely different game, right? So you just don't have that spam that would drive up the price and increase competition, even though there wasn't actually I mean, there was a competition, but it wasn't like real on-chain transactions, right?
Right. Yeah, fair. Fair.
And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes next. And you know, yeah, if we do get a game, just do we find some other fatal flaw in the mechanism design that we have to go, you know, figure out
Go
and
and fix
address?
it. Yeah. I think so. Like, there's no question in my mind. If transactions stay this cheap, someone will turn. There's so much money on Ethereum. Someone will turn up and go, okay, I'm going to build this thing, and it's going to, you know, have hundreds of thousands of transactions and going to cause some chaos. So moving on to our next topic, which I'm somewhat involved in. So Infinex launched a token sale via Sonar ahead of the INX TGE, and boy, was it interesting. So you know, historically, I have tried whenever there's some big thing that's going on, right? You know, some whether it's a synthetics launch or something for Infinex, I try to look at the prior art and say, okay, what are all the things that people are doing? And crypto, you know, prior art doesn't last very long. Like, someone was doing something 6 months ago, like oftentimes it's completely dead. You can't do it that way anymore. You gotta try something else. But I looked at all the different things that people were doing, the objections people had, what people were looking for, etc. And also just trying to optimize the best thing for Infinex as well. And we proposed this this sale. So we did an NFT sale a year ago, and the pricing was 125 million, 300 million, and 500 million FTV. 88% of people or something like that chose the 125 million FTV. Funnily enough, back then, the reason why most people told us they chose that with the longest lockup, right? So the 125 mil FTV had the longest lockup. The reason why they chose that is they were worried that we were going into a bear market. So already people are idiots. They have no idea what's going on, right? So that was the first thing. So we said, okay, we did this sale a year ago. We can't rug people by, you know, offering the same terms a year later for the token. We've got to have some difference. And so we said, okay, we're going to do $300 million FTV, which is below the NFT price, but with a 1-year lockup. And so, like, oftentimes I'll write up a blog post, which is like, you know, Bezos has this thing at Amazon where they write the press release first, right? And it's like, if the press release doesn't land, then like, get the fuck out, like, get out of the room, right? And so you know, I still wonder about the press release for the Fire Phone. Remember the Fire Phone that had like 8 LEDs around the screen? Like, how did that press release get there? They just kept adding more cameras. There were like 8 cameras, so it was like some weird thing. But so we said, okay, 300 mil, but we don't want people to feel like they're locked up and have no choice. So we'll give people a free option and an early exit clause. Now, oftentimes early exit clauses, like the prior art here is you get a bunch of tokens for a thing, for doing a thing, yield farming or some incentive, an airdrop or whatever, and they're locked. And if you want to leave, you lose some of the tokens. there's like a tax, an exit tax, like 50%, 70%, 80%. There's a lot of people that have done this. And it always struck me as like very punitive. Like the last thing I want to do is lose tokens to a project that I want, right? Like it just doesn't seem like a viable thing. Like if you said to me, like, I'll give you some Pengu and you can get liquidity after 3 months, but you got to lose half the Pengu, I'd be like, no, that's just, like, I'm never doing that. It's a terrible idea, right? So what we said is, instead of losing tokens, you can just pay a higher price if you want to leave, right? And so we're like, let's just pick kind of an arbitrary price. We'll pick $1 billion as the exit clause. So if for some reason it's trading over $1 billion and you want to exit early, you can pay a little bit more and get out. But obviously that is also kind of punitive. That's a fairly high price. So we'll have a decay curve, which goes from $1 billion down to 300 million over the course of a year. The conclusion on the timeline was, you're a monster trying to sell tokens at $1 billion. What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you pricing this token so expensively? It's like, no, guys. Like, this is just the game theory. Like, this is what we're trying to do. But it didn't really land on the timeline. So I don't know. Tay, what was your perspective as an outside observer? Like on my feed, it was just peak chaos. But yeah.
I mean, I did get it on my feed. I was like, oh damn. I was like, main character arc right here. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just your feed, as it sometimes is. I don't think people realize this. When you're the main character, like even a little bit of the main character, your entire worldview is shaped by people yelling at you. It is wild. And it's actually not an accurate representation of reality. You're like in your own little like bubble of hate, and it's really damaging. But yeah, so basically what Kane's asking is like, wait, but was it really like that? It was a bit. There was a bit. My favorite all-time comment that I've ever seen was this guy. I'll have to go back and find it. I don't even have the link, but it's so good. He basically was like, Kane is a scammer. This is a scam. These are the worst terms I've ever seen in my entire life. It's too much money, blah, 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 blah. But Infinix is a great product, and I'll continue to use it. And I was like,
my head of product like printed that out and was like, there you go. Like, my founder is a terrible person, but we're nailing the product, so who cares?
I was laughing so hard because I think that's possibly the first time I've ever seen that argument on crypto Twitter ever. Because usually it's the inverse, right? Usually it's like, you guys don't even have a product and I hate your terms. And it's almost like the lack of the product or the fact that the product sucks or whatever, it's almost fueling the FUD and like triggering the FUD. This one I was like, wow, like
I really like this, but he's so bad that I have to hate it.
Yeah, I have to.
He's such a bad person. It was really funny.
So I don't know. You get like a badge or an unlock for that one, because that was just like an incredible, just incredible commentary. In general, though, I think my sort of overall takeaway, because I don't really care that much about any of the exact terms on any of these things. I just don't pay that much attention. It's just more of the same, like, larger debate discussion on like, what are people optimizing for? What are end users expecting? What are the motivations of this? Like, why are people yelling? And like, for me, it's like, I don't know. I think we're in a weird place in the ICO arc. Like, we've been talking about these, like, Monad and like for so long, right?
It's been like a year.
And I think people are probably like a bit apprehensive about the market in general, like, and then
but this is the funny thing, like 2024, right? Like we did this NFT sale, and people were like, "I'm so worried about this bear market. It's coming in 20 minutes," and I was like, "I think you'll be okay, guys. Like, I don't know that we're in a bear market yet." So
yeah,
people are always worried.
It's pretty interesting.
People who haven't been through multiple cycles, I think, always over-index on, like, there's two components to it. One is bull markets are tiring as fuck. Like, it is so tiring to go through a bull market that by the time you're like 6 months in, there is a part of your brain that's like, I'm done. Like, it can be the best, most fun party ever, but after 3 days, you're like, like, I just want to go home and sleep, like, please.
Yeah.
But there's no getting off. You can't get off the merry-go-round. It's like, no, sorry, you're chained to this thing. You're gonna keep going until you pass out. So I think there is an element of like people are kind of hoping that it's over, like a pullback of like 20%. They're like, oh yeah, finally this is over. But then hilariously, when it actually is a bear market, 20 minutes after that, they're like, please bring the bull market back. This is a
Like,
nightmare.
oh no,
Everything's dying. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I don't know, Luca, what was your did that get into the Luca bubble at all? This Infinex
It got into the Luca bubble, but the Luca bubble has a different opinion nowadays than he probably might have had in the past. I mean, dude, it's gonna fill here today, gone tomorrow. Once it fills, everyone's gonna be aligned and saying it's the best thing ever. And you could airdrop them all the entire supply, they'll find a way to FUD it. So somebody, I think Guy might have coined this, but the peanut gallery. I really like that term of the peanut gallery. Just a bunch of peanuts, peanut gallerying away. Nobody's serious in the comments, saying anything. It's just not serious people. So it's like a very interesting thing. Just I'm learning this. I've learned this deeply over the last couple of years, but as I get older in this space, month over month, the more that I just realize it's like there's the peanut gallery and then there's the serious people. Like no serious people were under your post, like saying anything that like caught my eye and made me like want to go and like read up on it. Like the peanut gallery just clickety clacking their shells, and I was just like, all right, Kane will be fine tomorrow.
Well, so one of the most funny things for me, right, is like there are this new, and every single cycle there's a new cohort of KOLs that emerge, right? So there were this new cohort of KOLs who have emerged. Some of them out of the InfoFi arc, whatever. But one guy was this guy Whale.mocha, right? And he was really like anti the terms, hated the terms, whatever. I don't know that he's ever used Infinex, so he doesn't know what the product is, but just in principle didn't like the terms, which I was like, okay, fine. But then I was like, guys, and this is a little bit of a skill issue, and if I could go back, I would do this a different way. I was like, in 2 days, we have this CT Mafia blood money crates drop, where we're dropping crates to all of the CT Mafia. If you guys just waited like 2 days, you get paid your blood money and you wouldn't need to FUD it. But the hilarious thing is, so 2 days later, he gets his crates, he opens up a bunch of crates, gets some prizes, and he's like, actually, I changed my mind. This is really good. I like it. I was like, there you go. But it's like the mafioso that's like, hey, nice project, to be ashamed if it burned down. But he's already burned it down. He burned the house down, and then he's like, actually, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. You're actually a good kid. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, it was quite hilarious to observe the pivot, to like maybe like vague tolerance from hatred. But yeah, we'll get there. So next thing that I think we wanted to talk about was HIP-3, this upgrade to Hyperliquid. So this has been a thing that's been rolling out now for a little while. Was proposed maybe like 6 months ago or something like that, and has been slowly rolling out. I think it's very interesting to see how Hyperliquid has been going about moving from this very centralized listing process and control from the team to opening up to the community. And I think one thing that they've been doing really well is saying, okay, if you want to do stuff on Hyperliquid, if you want to come in and participate in the ecosystem, build things in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, we're going to have a very clear requirement of just staking hype, which is a bit different to like OG DeFi days. OG DeFi days, you might have to stake the token to vote, but you were just like one person voting, right? So, you go and get a bunch of Aave and you're like, you've got 3% of the vote. You can't actually sway a vote, right? So almost nothing would happen. This is a bit different where they're saying like, just stake, 50 bips of the supply or what, maybe not even that, maybe like 5 bips of the supply, right? Like a few $1 million worth of tokens. and it's an open playing field. You can go and do whatever you want, which to me, like from a permissionlessness standpoint, feels like much more aligned. I think it's a much smarter. I'm sure there's been examples of this that have happened historically, but this to me, this cycle with Hyperliquid, where it's like, come and stake this amount of hype and you can do this thing. Come and stake this amount of hype, you can do this thing. Just from a governance and kind of coordination perspective, feels so much more aligned in how that they've done this. So the most interesting thing, though, for me, I think, is that we now have like YOLO equity perps, which I didn't think was going to happen this quickly. Like, I know it's crime season, but I going back to like OG Synthetics days, Mirror Protocol, we did equity, not even perps, right? Just tokenized equities. We did it for like 30 minutes, and every single, like, not even my lawyers, just like any lawyer that I came across was like, bro, you need to shut this down immediately. Like, this is a terrible idea. And now we've got like the largest DEX with like permissionless equity perp contracts. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers right now. This is, I don't know. I feel like this is a huge unlock.
Explain how this works, though, Kane, technically, if you don't mind, or Tay, if either of you know how this works technically. Like, obviously, it's not like a debt receipt on like the NASDAQ. So, like, how is this functionally? This is like,
so I mean,
price action,
perps,
and you just,
all perps are like synthetic contracts, right? Like, they have an oracle price that looks at the price of gold or whatever, right? It says, okay, gold's 4,000 an ounce. And then they have a mechanism that kind of keeps the traders in line, whether it's a funding rate or something. So, there's an external source of pricing data that's pulled in, and then it lets people trade contracts with leverage on that pricing data, right? So, if you think gold's going to $5,000 an ounce, you can go long. If you think it's going back to 3,000 an ounce, you go short. You're not trading gold. No one's moving gold around in like buckets, right? It's purely a paper trading system. And this is the same thing with equities, right? If you're trading 30x leverage NVIDIA contracts, like, there's no NVIDIA being harmed in this process. But trading securities and derivatives of securities, like, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know what happened to the SEC, but I remember those guys used to be pretty aggressive. And yet, again, like, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know. I do feel like this industry is really good at, like, we get an inch and then we just
Kind of like so hard. Gensler must be rolling in his grave right now. Like, what? Like,
I mean,
imagine the seethe and cope that's going on in that guy's head. I mean, we saw that lady. I can't remember her name. Like, on the timeline for like 2 weeks. Mary or something like that.
Karen.
That was like losing her mind. The Karen from the SEC.
Yeah.
Was like losing her mind. Like, losing her mind. She was like, you people are so, you just, like, if you come out and say Hayden is effectively a criminal, right? Like, the most, like, friendly, law-abiding, like, like, flowers and rainbows guy in crypto, and you're like, this guy is the devil. It's like, bro, you're not even close. Like, anyway, so, yeah.
No, and I mean, that was the problem with the SEC, right? Like, that era of the SEC was just, one, everything is crime. Two, actually not everything is crime. Only like the legit players that are like within our orbit are the criminals. And meanwhile, every actual user, every actual person, there is actual harm in this industry. And the SEC's like, no, it's Hayden.
Hayden and Uniswap. They're the ones that are bad, right? Like, what?
So that's, yeah. And I think that this is, if you look at, like, how does this industry get to a point where we're not, like, if the goal is not necessarily like whatever, the SEC, right? Just ignore the SEC. If the goal is like, let's have better markets, let's have less harm, let's have more understanding, right? How do we get there? to a certain extent, the answer has to come from within this industry in order to have that buy-in and legitimacy. On the other hand, like, it also has to be, like, I don't know, the second that you go too hard on any one end, you just risk this like rebellious blowback that's super unproductive. This industry is so good at just taking anything and then just running with it. And then the second that you're like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best idea in the world, they like just 180 and just go the other direction. And like, I don't know. I think we will eventually have to get to a place where everything is just more is like these smaller iterations in reaction to like real issues and harm, and like go from there.
Think, you know, the interesting thing to me is like I had dinner with Hayden and Robert Leshner from Compound in like 2022, right? And we were still in this mindset of like the SEC is just like a little bit confused about what's going on, and if we can just educate them and explain to them why this is going to create more efficient markets. And then a year later, we had dinner again, and we're like, oh, they're trying to kill us. Okay, like that. It's totally. We were just so naive and oblivious to like what was actually going on. But the problem is, and I've said this many times, like if someone's trying to kill me, I'm gonna kill back. Like I'm not just gonna sit. Like once it's very clear that this is not like a friendly, let's educate the person. It's like no. If you're gonna like start firing, you know, nukes at us, we're gonna fire back. And that's the problem. Is like that then creates this mindset in the industry of like, okay, now it's adversarial and you can't be educated. You don't care about what we're trying to do. And if you can kind of weaponize someone like Hayden, like you've done something horribly wrong, right?
So bad.
Like if Hayden gets radicalized, like you're in a bad place.
Yeah, and the end effect of it, right, is that the whole industry and the best builders in this industry, right, the best legal minds, the smartest people who like actually knew what was up and actually were potentially in a place to improve the ecosystem, spent all their time and energy fighting the SEC. Like that was it. And the goal was not necessarily to like their focus was just primarily on like survival and not being destroyed. Now it's like, okay, it's a free-for-all, but nobody's really taken the time to ask and understand and dive into like what's the best possible path for us. Because everyone's been so busy fighting, like just like trying to not die.
I mean, look at like all of governance. Like there's so much
this
governance
is what I mean.
nonsense. I know this is triggering for you, right? Like it was like, okay, actually no one's in charge, guys. There's like a computer somewhere. It's maybe in charge. We don't really know. We can't do anything. We've got no idea. And it was all this like smokescreen because again, like, you know, and this is my point, right? If you're like, oh, there are people trying to break into my house and kill my family. It's like, well, I'm like, I got a couple of shotguns now, right? Like I'm going to defend myself. So, you know, and like having a bunch of shotguns in your house is net negative for everyone. Like bad stuff's going to happen, right? Like, but it's like, you don't have a choice. There's people coming in and going to break the door down and try and, you know, carry you off to the gulag. Anyway,
well, that's okay. So with regards to, I mean, it's everything. It's literally every product decision, every company decision right now, governments, like product priorities, right? When we look at like Hyperliquid, right? I think this is a huge unlock for them, right? They're basically like leveling up in a way where they've unlocked other people's ability to create basically markets. Right. And it's not just assets, it's like entire sort of little markets. And then there's assets on these individual markets, right? That's great. That's I think that there's like a huge amount of value to unlock here.
Permissionless NASDAQ. Like it's wild.
Like
imagine if you could just turn up to the NASDAQ and like stake some NASDAQ equity and get to like list your own thing, right? Like good stuff will happen and bad stuff will happen there, right? And this is
huge unlock, like full stop, like unlock. Okay. Also, probably a lot of different risks and like
Yeah.
a lot of different risks over a huge area.
But you know, it's funny, right? Okay, a bunch of risks, and yeah, people will lose some money, but the end result is like the market progresses, we learn some things, and it's not like you can prevent bad things from happening just because you're a regulated market. Look at SPACs. SPACs just like was scorched earth across, and like this is not happening in DeFi. It's happening in the middle of TradFi. The middle of TradFi, while the craziest SEC in history is running amok, and like the SPAC boom happens, right? So it's not like there's some magic wand of like, oh, let's just regulate and like that will solve all the problems, right? Like it's regulators are not magicians.
No, they're really bad actually, because they actually are quite like they're mostly oriented towards things that are not necessarily like getting the best outcomes. Like they have all their other motivations, so that like always makes things messy, obviously. They're very slow and inefficient, which is sometimes a good thing, but obviously when you have an ecosystem that's rapidly evolving, like the faster that you can respond to like live issues and live risks and like help steer, or like, oh, it's literally they're running headlong into the rocks and continuously crashing.
Let's
like
try
you have to be able to like with a more iterative, gentle hand, like
guide people
away.
to some, but I think that is like fundamentally a problem, right? If you know, if you're like, I mean, imagine you're sitting there at the SEC and you're like, okay, I am so slow, it takes me a year to do anything, right? Like there's going to be so much harm that will come from all of these things. I can see how you could get yourself to the point where like shut it down, right? And that's like SEC Karen was like, we gave you guidance in 2019 on like this one thing. What is your problem? Like just don't do anything else. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. We're going to continue discussing DeFi, but DeFi on Solana and some Solana DeFi drama after a message from our sponsor.
Hey, founders and developers. If you're looking to bring on-chain trading to your product, wallet, or platform, check out the new Uniswap Trading API from Uniswap Labs. It's your plug-and-play gateway to global on-chain liquidity. No deep crypto experience required, and no need to manage complex integrations or ongoing maintenance. With the Uniswap Trading API, you'll get enterprise-grade on-chain execution, combining both on-chain and off-chain sources for the most competitive prices. Simply put, more liquidity, less complexity. And this isn't just any API. It connects directly to the Uniswap protocol, which has securely processed over $3.3 trillion in total volume with zero hacks. So stop worrying about liquidity infrastructure and focus on building your product. Get access to the same liquidity that powers billions in swaps through one powerful API. Visit hub.uniswap.org to learn more.
All right. It wouldn't be an Uneasy Money episode if we didn't mention Kyle Samani at some point. So we got a little bit of drama in the Solana DeFi ecosystem. So I woke up, I think maybe yesterday, and I'm in the Solana DeFi Telegram chat, and usually it's fairly sleepy. There's like 30, 50 messages a day or something like that. I woke up and there were like 1,500 unread messages, and I was like, either it's some giant hack or like some crazy drama is going on, and it turns out it was drama. There was a dispute, I guess, between Camino, and I'll put my hand up and say I'm an investor in Camino, which is the lending protocol, and Jupiter, which is now an everything protocol. They started as a DEX, but they do everything now, which is, I think, part of what's going on here. I think Jupiter's the biggest DeFi project in the Solana ecosystem, and they're just stepping on everyone's toes. Like every single thing that anyone is doing well in Solana DeFi, Jupiter is like, yeah, we'll do that too. Like getting into perps, getting into lending, getting into everything. They want to be this kind of everything financial app within Solana. So Camino was like, well, how about we just stop people from leaving Camino? We'll just block people from being able to go to Jupiter Lens' new address, which yeah, I don't know. And I don't know where we got to. Like, I think this is like on chain. So I think we know that this happened. They hard coded it. And then Casamani was like, no, no, guys, you don't understand. Camino users are just choosing Camino. This has nothing. This is just a choice thing, right? Like they're just choosing to do it. And also, if they happen to not be choosing it, really, it's Camino just protecting themselves from the risk of Jupiter. Two very classic Carl Samani takes on the world. Yeah, what do we think about blocking people from going to other DeFi protocols?
I'm Team Jupiter on this one. I'm Team Jupiter on this one. I mean, look, it's not DeFi if you do that, right? Like, frankly, unless like you're preventing some sort of systemic risk, which like maybe at least in the beginning I thought was like, well, maybe they're like trying to like stop like some elaborate looping scheme and like the two commingling or is like creating this scheme. But at the end of the day, like that's DeFi, right? Like even if that was the case, doesn't seem like it is necessarily, but I'm Team Jupiter. And at the end of the day, like if Jupiter is just going to go and take everyone's lunch, like that's and everybody else's problem. That's not a Jupiter problem. And it seems like the consumer is losing because Jupiter is doing great work and their competitors are upset. So I think Camino, and I like the Camino guys too. Those guys, a lot of the Solana guys are over in Miami. And so, huge Drift, Camino, the whole, Margin Fi, love all those guys. But to be frank, like Jupiter's in the right here, Camino's in the wrong. I'd fix it if I was them, like I'll optimize for the user experience and the user above all else. And Jupiter has an amazing team. I mean, like I'm in Jupe land. I'm everywhere over in Jupiter land. It's the only thing I use to. I've said this for a while. I think Solana's not Solana without the Jupiter team. I really believe that. I thought Solana.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Until Jupiter came around, so I thought it changed everything for them.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it just feels super shady. It just feels completely anti-Web3 and everything that we stand for. Like users having the right to exit and like actually having the right is a huge part of what permissionlessness is. I think that Kyle's argument is like, well, they can still technically leave. And that's a similar argument that like a wallet could make, right? Like a wallet could say like, they can still technically go send all of their money somewhere else and not use our product if we start to screw them over. But that's like a huge barrier. And that it's a huge barrier, right? It's not super genuine to like stand on that position, especially if they had the ability to do that and you're actually removing their ability to do that. It's different if there's other if there's like other considerations and that was the best product decision for other reasons and it had that like as a downstream consequence. I'm not seeing that here though, right? Like
no.
Users had the ability to, right? They had the ability to do this thing. And then,
I mean, Jupe Lend didn't exist, right? So it wasn't like Camino was like, let's hard code this thing to stop people from being able to leave until they started leaving. And then they're like, what if we could stop them? What if we had the technology to stop them from leaving?
That's, and from a purely selfish financial business thing.
So business, it's an interesting. So this is my hot take on this, though, right? Solana is a much more commercial ecosystem, right? And I'm sure that some crazy DeFi project has tried to do something like this before. So I don't want to pretend like Ethereum is, somehow completely above all of this.
Okay, wait, but hold on. Yeah. We did. Sushi Swap literally came out of nowhere and literally vampired all of Uniswap.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and what did Uniswap do? They did not block, right? They did not, right? They were like, all right, we're going to have to drop a token too then.
Yeah. Which was great for everyone. But this is my sort of question or point, I guess, on this, right? It's like Solana is a much more commercial ecosystem. It has much more commercially minded people. It has attracted more commercially minded people. I think that there is, and this is kind of weird when you think about it, that like the Ethereum, pure decentralized ethos, somehow that the vibes of that prevented any large scale protocols from playing these kinds of games. Whereas that doesn't really exist in the Solana ecosystem. So it's sort of like gloves off. Your business is being attacked by another business. You need to do what you can to prevent it. And the Overton window is like a bit different on Solana, it seems like.
No, this is I wouldn't even look at it through that lens. I'd look at it through the lens of entrepreneurship. And if you were to look at it through that lens, like Solana's tagline is ship or die, I can tell you I'm a Solana power user and DeFi power user. I actually only use Solana DeFi instead of, I don't use any Ethereum DeFi with the exception of a little bit of size on Athena and Aave. JuPlend is the better product. Like, I just hate to break it. It's easier, it's simpler, the yield feels better. So like at that point, like just be a high integrity entrepreneur. And instead of just trying to like, both from an entrepreneurship perspective, like super lame. Like that's like if ChatGPT like didn't let you use like Facebook, or
dude,
like
okay, hang on. But ask ChatGPT about Claude and it pretends like it doesn't know that Anthropic exists. It's actually hilarious. If you go, like I've had weird issues with Anthropic and Claude and Cursor, right? And if you go to ChatGPT and you say, "Hey, I'm using Cursor and I'm trying to figure out this setting or whatever," it's like, "Do you mean the thing that shows up on the screen when you're about to type?" And it's like, "What? No, I obviously don't mean that." And like, I mean the AI platform. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, no, I've never heard of this product before. So this, like Web2 does this
into
stuff.
one another and like integrate. Like I could still steel man that though a little bit and just be like, okay, like Camino doesn't need to like hop into this pool, or you would know the terminology better, but like they cannot be commingled in any way, and like obviously that would hurt both of their like TVL or like maybe some like yield parameters, but like completely saying like my users can't, go over there. Great. Like JuPlend's the better product. I don't have this problem because I actually just moved 2 weeks ago, my money off Camino to JuPlend because I was like, why am I diversified?
You front ran the exit.
Yeah.
You caused this, Luca. This is your fault.
They saw,
they're like,
Camino
where's
saw
our size
Luca's
going?
wallet leaving, and they're like, we got to stop this mass exodus. Luca, we're drawing a line. Once Luca leaves, it's over for us. So, all right, moving on to.
Okay, but wait, hold on. I have
Okay,
one last thing. Okay. Here's the difference between the Web3 and DeFi way of thinking about things and the TradFi way, and it's actually really important to like remember this because it's not actually that Web3 is like less valuable, right? Like the moat exists. If you block in your users and you keep them, that there's value there, right? Yeah. The whole point and the whole thing that Web3 is, and DeFi especially, has proven is that with more interoperability, with more people doing more things and having more freedom, there's more value on the table. Fair. Right? And so when I look at a decision like this, it feels very like TradFi Web2, lock everyone in, try to keep it for yourself, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a completely wrong mentality, not because it's not like a moat. It is a moat. There is value there. You can count that value, but it's not as valuable as if you were to like prioritize on leveling everyone up, because that's what's going to really get those again, like just look at the stuff in even just like 2019, 2020, like early DeFi, like that would have never been possible. And nobody,
if people are locking things down, for sure. Yeah.
The interoperability is what creates more value. And it's like only if you're really in this very old way of thinking that you don't see that. And so like I would argue this is a bad business decision for them, not because of the blowback, not because of the, the moat. Like it's a bad business decision because you're clearly not, like you clearly have not realized the true value and the potential value of what you could access and what you could get for your users. And that's going to end. Like, that's why you're leaving value on the table ultimately, right? You can lock everyone up like you want, but...
does the organism reject this sort of thing, right? Like, given that people have choice, given that people, is this something where people go, no, hang on, like we have, we can move and go somewhere else, and if you guys are going to play these kinds of games, then we're gonna just exit. We're gonna hit the escape hatch.
I mean, one, I think people will exit, not to a degree that makes a huge, I mean, maybe, but probably not to a degree that makes a huge amount of difference. I think what ultimately, like if I was an investor in Camino, I would be saying, guys, you need to understand where the value unlocks are and how to like empower people and get in on like these unlocks, right? And the interoperability, because if you do that successfully, then like the sky's the limit. But if you continue down this mindset of like our value is only what we can capture and therefore lock everything in and try to keep people and count the users, like I would just worry about long term, like what their product looks like, what choices they make, how they expand their product. And I think it's self-defeating in this industry, not because people will yell at you on Twitter, but because there's actually just less value on the table.
Yeah, fair. I'll clip that and send it to him.
Thanks, Kane.
So two more kind of interrelated topics to round it out for today. The first one is Anthropic is attacking our protocols. It turns out they've got a red team that's I guess trying to figure out crypto exploits, and then coincidentally, at the exact same time, Yearn Finance was exploited, and we've had now some like, it just feels weird that my spidey senses are tingling. I mean, Tay, you must have some thoughts on this. Like, why do these old vaults keep getting exploited? Is this just like people see it happening and then they go, actually, maybe there's more kind of exploits available here, and they go back to this old stuff? I would have thought people were pouring over this old stuff all the time anyway. And like anything that's got like, eight, 9 figures of money that's been just sitting there for a while. Like what's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, Yearn definitely feels very similar to Balancer. It's not, and not necessarily because of the technicals or attribution or any of that. It just feels similar that you have these sort of like these OG protocols that are perceived to be robust, and then all of a sudden this thing happens that nobody thought was possible. I do suspect that Yearn, well, I suspect that Balancer probably has influenced a lot of people to go back and look more carefully about at the old contracts and be like, maybe these things aren't as robust as everyone assumes. I think the other thing though is that if you really sort of understand deeply the Balancer exploit, there's like another takeaway here, which is that there's a lot of assumptions that builders and even auditors and even like red teamers just have about smart contracts and how they operate and like what's a flaw and a weakness and what's not. And if you can find the right set of conditions and invariants, then those assumptions break and then you can hack the thing. And I think that in both these cases, it took a long time for the best experts in the space to deeply understand the root cause and all of the contributing factors. Like it's not everyone that was tweeting, by the way, in both incidents instantly like, here's the root cause. They were wrong. They were really, really wrong. These things were complex. There was a lot of different things that happened. Part of it is understanding exactly what the attack did, but then also understanding like the true root cause. In both cases, it is not a simple answer.
It's not trivial, right?
Yeah. And so I think that, and I don't know, people keep asking me if it's AI. It's not AI. And the Anthropic thing, which we'll talk about in a second, proves it's not AI, right? Like these are the best guys who are going deepest on the best data sets. However,
what's your take on the Anthropic red team stuff? I think a lot of people are like, AI is going to kill us all, which it will, but like not through DeFi exploits is the hot take, I guess.
Yeah. So one, the research is really good. It's really like, it's robust research. It's like actual research. It's not like as exciting Twitter wise, because it's not like we hacked everything. It levels everything up. It defines standards for these sorts of things, which other people will then be judged against, and things will progress. I think it's super interesting that they were able to actually find a kind of a lot of exploits. And even though these exploits weren't necessarily like, you know, these $100 million things, there was still kind of a lot of them, including some active ones that were live and had been live. And so I think one of my takeaways was this is super cool, because there is a whole demographic of builders and smart contract people that just like don't actually take security and testing and bug bounty seriously whatsoever.
No,
and they just exist on chain. They just exist on chain, and there's money in them. And so the issue historically is that like if there's no incentive to hunt for it except to hack it, then you're only going to hack it. If you can lower that barrier to entry, meaning if AI can just go out there and like look for these things, there's a potential that you save people's money, because it's the cost of like finding these things.
I mean, audits are expensive, right? Like, and not fault free, right? Like every one of these things, like Balancer had like some crazy number of audits.
They had like 10,
years, right? Yeah. So you know, like, and I mean, as someone who's done a lot of audits, I'm sure, you know, all three of us have been through the audit process many times. Like, you know, you can do an audit and then you can send it to another auditor and they're like, here's the high sev thing. Yeah. It's like, oh wow, we went through 3 rounds of audits with the other guys, and it's just like different set of eyes, different perspective, different, you know, different priors about how things hook together. And all of a sudden someone goes, wait, and then as soon as you show it to the other team, they're like, oh wow, yeah, we really missed this. Like, wow, like holy shit. It's like, it's not like they're like, no, we don't think that's real, right? They're like, it's always like, oh yeah, that was a thing that, you know, we didn't think through. So I guess in theory you throw like AGI at all of our contracts and it takes all the money, it finds ways.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, that's what this Anthropic research is pushing forward. It's definitely not like 100% there yet in terms of like finding a balancer, but you can definitely imagine that it's like, again, it's another tool in the tool chest. It's another thing with different incentives and different motivations that can go out and find things. And that ultimately will help protect people, right? Ultimately, well, and it can also be used by bad guys to hack more things, but you know, we'll
hopefully
deal with that.
If you lower the cost, it becomes better. All right, guys, I better run so I don't miss my flight. I'm about to head on a plane.
Shoot.
So yeah, this has been fun. That's it for this episode of Uneasy Money. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, follow us on the Unchained feed on X, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll see you guys next week.
Later.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
It's huge. I mean, historically we've moved quite slow by design, right? Like it's there's just a lot of moving parts here, and the fact that we can get 2 in 1 year is really impressive because it means like people are finding a rhythm and like getting through. And what I'm hearing from my peers, other core devs, I'm not hearing excessive burnout. Like this isn't like, oh, we just worked twice as hard because we were already working 110%.
Hey everyone, welcome to this special episode of Unchained. I'm Christine D. Kim, the host of the Ready for Merge podcast and the writer of the ACD After Hours and BTC Before Light newsletters. I'm very excited to host this episode of Unchained because we're going to be talking about the Fusaka upgrade, which is coming up very, very soon. And I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, Preston Van Loon, the founder of Prismatic Labs and a full-time client developer for the Ethereum consensus layer client, Prism. So, hi, Preston.
Hey, happy to be here with you.
Are you a builder who needs to add on-chain trading to your product? The Uniswap Trading API from Uniswap Labs offers plug-and-play access to some of the deepest liquidity in crypto. It's on-chain execution at an enterprise level. More liquidity, less complexity. Visit hub.uniswap.org to learn more. Mantle is pioneering blockchain for banking, a revolutionary new category at the intersection of TradFi and Web3. Follow Mantle_official to learn more.
Yay! I'm glad that we're doing this episode together because, as I was just mentioning before we started this recording, when I was ideating the show or this episode with the Unchained team, we knew we wanted to talk about Fusaka and also give it a little bit more of a focus on how Fusaka is going to impact L2s. And uniquely, the Prism client is maintained by Offchain Labs, which builds Arbitrum and L2. So I feel like, yeah, you have a really, like you're in a position where you're building the L1, but have like very close access to like a major L2 that you're building.
Yeah, I would say that Arbitrum or Offchain Labs is our biggest customer. So we care deeply about what's happening in L2s and how we're improving and impacting them. So there's a lot to talk about here in Fusaka. This is a really exciting upgrade.
Yeah, I want to talk about the specific impact of Fusaka on L2s, but very generally, let's talk about the kind of like biggest EIPs or biggest impacts coming up from the upgrade. So Fusaka, as we were talking before the recording, has about 12 EIPs in it. Can you give an overview of like the main features, the biggest impact of this upgrade on various Ethereum stakeholders? Like, give us the bird's eye view of this major upgrade.
Yeah, I think that almost all these are very exciting. There's some that are like more, I don't know, maintenance level EIPs, but this is a very exciting EIP set because we have a really interesting headliner called PeerDAS, and the theme here is blobs, right? We're trying to scale the data layer of Ethereum through blobs and do it in a way that keeps it practical to run at home and to keep the decentralization going and keep the home staker alive, and at the same time scaling the data layer, scaling the L1. There's a little bit of both in this upgrade, and if you like, we can dive into each of the EIPs or kind of touch on them a little bit. We start with PeerDAS. This is one-dimensional PeerDAS. So the idea in Deneb 2 forks ago is we introduced this blob layer, right, where you can post arbitrary data. It's called a blob because it's sort of undefined what it is. It could be anything. It could be a picture of a cat. It could be call data or the batch data from an L2, which is more practically what we see. See some people playing games on like actual games on the data layer, there's something called Blob House, which is kind of interesting. But really, this PeerDAS is about supporting L2. So people that want to build on the L1 and need the data availability layer that we provide. And so when we introduced this, we said, well, let's upgrade the blocks so that you can people can buy 6 blobs. They're all the same size, I think 128 kilobytes, and you can buy up to 6 of them per block. And then everybody who runs a node downloads the blobs, downloads everything, retains everything for a period of time. And, when you want to start scaling this, you want to start increasing it when you're asking more from the network. Say, if we went to 12, now suddenly everyone has to download double the amount, right? And that just doesn't scale very well. So there are techniques that we have in computer science where you don't need to store everything, right? The novel invention in PeerDAS is to use erasure coding, which is a fancy way to say if you have a subset of the data, let's say 50% of it, you can reconstruct the other 50% of it. This is technology that was really popular, I think, in the 90s with compact disc players, right? If you were like jogging with your disc player and it like skipped, what they would do is, if it didn't read the disc for a moment, it has enough data to continue playing the music. So we can use a similar idea. Instead of having all the data, everyone having all the data all the time, you just have a little bit of it. And for a normal validator, let's say, what I mean by normal is at-home staker with one validator. They don't even need to retain 50%. They're only going to retain some part of that. I think they're going to have 8 data columns. And there are either 64 or 128. I can't remember. But they don't have to retain all of it. They're going to get a random number of those, and they're going to sample so they're reasonably convinced that, okay, most of the data is there. I'm convinced that it exists. So it makes it easier to scale the blob layer, the data layer, without having to impose these big hardware requirements, right? You're not going to need more. You're not necessarily going to need more disk space. So right away, when Fusaka goes live, probably is already live if you're listening to this now. Node operators, the blob count is still 6, the maximum, or 9, or whatever it was in Pectra, didn't change right away. So all of a sudden, node operators are storing less data and achieving the same goal. That's a huge win. But right away, we can take advantage of that, say, well, now let's increase the target blob count and the max blob count and kind of reach parity of where we were. So we'll see, the Fusaka fork happens on December 3rd. And then on December 9th, we have something called a blob parameter only upgrade or hard fork. And this is a sense that there's not a client update that goes out, like every hard fork, every upgrade, everyone has to like get their software updated. If you're on Fusaka now, you already have this built into your client. You don't need to update again. This will be the blob parameter only upgrade, and that'll be on December 9th. And I can't recall what we go to. We go to, it just increases to 10 as the target and 15 as the maximum. And then again, in a month later, in January 7th, it'll increase again to a target of 14 and a maximum of 21. So that's a pretty substantial update to the data layer. We have a lot more capacity. That's very interesting for L2s. So what does it exactly mean for an L2 user? Fees will go even lower, I imagine, which is kind of hard to imagine because fees are so low right now. And on mainnet, I saw the gas price being 0.1 Gwei. I've never seen it that low in my life, and that was amazing to see. But anyway, we're scaling, and that's why it's so low. The actually part of Fusaka was that the L1 gas limit went from 45 million to 60 million as a client default, and because people are updating early, that already happened, and fees went way down because there's now a lot more block space to use on L1. That's really great. And then we're also scaling the data layer, so L2s benefit from that. It's pretty cool.
That's I think for context for our listeners, Fusaka mainnet upgrade is happening on Wednesday, December 5th, and we're recording this on Monday, December 3rd, 2 days before. So depending on when you're getting this episode, it could be that fees are even lower by the time you're listening to this episode because of the scaling improvements that are coming through PeerDAS. I want to double click on one of the things that you kind of mentioned, Preston, and you said that PeerDAS, which is the headline or the main feature in Pectra, or sorry, not Pectra, Fusaka, is one-dimensional. Can you talk a little bit about some of the features that still have not yet been implemented for PeerDAS to be for that data availability sampling to be fully functional? Because as I'm aware, some of those benefits around being able to scale blobs, being able to increase throughput without impacting the home staker, that's kind of still the goal even after Fusaka. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of features are not actually enabled through the partial PeerDAS that's kind of implemented through Fusaka and still needs to be done after this upgrade goes live?
Yeah, so what I mean by one-dimensional is that when we have a blob, we split it into columns, as I mentioned before, I think 128. And you only need to, that's the one dimension. They're split into columns, and you retain a subset of that. Multi-dimensional PeerDAS or the proto-dank sharding vision is a lot more elaborate. I feel like I couldn't do it justice to explain it correctly. I'm afraid to misspeak, but my understanding is that you can use data from other blobs to reconstruct from data columns from other blobs to reconstruct the blob in question. So you would be able to retain, less data and be able to reconstruct more. So it's kind of interesting. But this kind of like is a building step towards that. And, when we're talking about going to like 21 blobs per block, I mean, we want hundreds at some point. So this is, there's still a lot of work to do here. This is a big stepping stone towards that. And the technique we use with the blob parameter only forks is that we can, incrementally ramp up to that instead of like going on day one from to going to a significant update in blob capacity. We can do it incrementally. Nice for multiple reasons. Like node operators have time to react if they're like hitting some resource limits, which they shouldn't in these cases because quite conservative. And the fee markets are a little more. They don't have such a shock to it when it's like capacity just tripled overnight. It'll be like over a couple of, like in this case, it'll be over a month and a half, like 6 weeks. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, some incremental upgrades. I mean, to that point, we were talking about how before this recording, how it's going to be the first time developers have shipped 2 major network-wide upgrades in 1 year. Technically, it's 3 because, as you said, there's the BPO1 hard fork, which means you guys are shipping 3 upgrades in 1 year. And by the number of EIPs that have been implemented, this is by far the biggest year yet for Ethereum development. Pectra was the largest upgrade by far with 12 EIPs. I believe this one, Fusaka, is the same or similar, 12 EIPs. How significant of a milestone do you think that is, that Ethereum developers are shipping this many features in this short of a time?
It's huge. I mean, historically we've moved quite slow. By design, right? Like there's just a lot of moving parts here. And the fact that we can get 2 in 1 year is really impressive because it means like people are finding a rhythm and like getting through. And what I'm hearing from my peers, other core devs, I'm not hearing excessive burnout. Like this isn't like, oh, we just worked twice as hard because we were already, working 110%. But something in the way it was organized, just we were able to do it on on the Prism team, we kind of have like an A and B team internally, where like some people are working on like H-star already, and some people working on Glaus, and then while we're wrapping up Fusaka, people are jumping ahead. So we're kind of leapfrogging each other. Like half the team is working on one fork and the next one. So things are happening in parallel. And I think that speaks to, Ethereum community and core devs want to move quickly. Like we want to scale, we like to ship things, and seeing, Pectra was the biggest fork like of all time. And then we're like, let's do it again. And we did it again in 1 year. That's really impressive. And, this upgrade has just a lot of really exciting things, like not only the blob parameter stuff, but their EIPs for like UX that I'm really excited about. Maybe we could talk about that. There's an EIP that adds a precompile for the elliptic curve that is commonly used for passkeys. So what if you said, like, I wish that everybody had a hardware wallet? Well, now if you have a phone, an iPhone or Android, now you do, because there's a cryptography chip in there where you have your private key like baked into the phone. So your phone is like the hardware wallet. And now that hardware can sign Ethereum transactions natively. That's huge. Like that's going to unlock like sign your transaction with your face ID. That's going to be super cool. Or your thumbprint or whatever people are using for passkeys today. Passwords are kind of going away, and we're kind of moving towards this model where you have this secure enclave and some kind of like biometric, and seeing that for Ethereum is really cool. So that benefits L1 and L2. Everyone who's using the EVM and supports the CIP will see a benefit of, user experience for sure.
Any other particular impacts from the long list of VIPs in Fusaka that you think is important for L2 operators specifically to know?
Yeah, so there are a few things that impact them. One of them being that, as we're increasing the block size, what I mean by size, like the gas limit for blocks, there becomes a risk for, certain attacks, like just filling with junk and stuff like that. So folks have advocated for an EIP that limits the gas for any particular transaction. So the new limit will be 30 million. And I don't think that will necessarily be an issue right away, but for some L2s, I could imagine they use a very expensive like batch processing or transaction settlement through call data that could impact them. I mean, there's ways around it, right? But that's something to call out. Mostly affects how L2s operate, not like end users won't really notice or care how it gets done as long as it's getting done. There are other things for L2s, like the deterministic proposer look ahead. And what this means, this EIP means, is that with the consensus layer, we don't know exactly who's proposing the next epoch until this epoch finishes. We have a good idea, but there's like, a little bit of randomness that can happen. And so we can't make any decisions based on the knowledge until the first slot of an epoch. And so when you have sequencers that want to work closely with L1 block producers, you need to have that deterministic capability of predicting, what's going to happen in the next 12 minutes. And that way you have like a little bit of advanced notice, like maybe there's some like base sequencers or someone who's like working with validators to like get their stuff committed in a particular order. And imagine you wanted to do, you want like two L2s that like batch their things together, and so they can do like cross-chain intents or something like that. People can get creative with the idea, but that like having that gives a little bit more flexibility on what you can build for L2s. So that's interesting. Another impact for L2s is the fees for blobs. Historically, we have made a huge fumble in the fee market for blobs, where like typically or for the longest time, they were being purchased for like one way, or one way probably, like the bare minimum you can do. And this is just like a naive assumption of like, oh, we're going to find equilibrium in the fee market. But one gwei or one way, whatever it may be, the small number doesn't even reflect the computational cost to process a blob, right? So we're kind of like giving this away for free and not even charging what it costs the node operators to process, a blacklist to process. So now there's a new EAP that ensures that the minimum fees are at least enough to cover the execution cost. And that way the fee markets are more predictable, and they're not like it can still be very, very cheap, right? But it's not going to be like free anymore, which just makes sense, I don't think L2 fees will really notice this much, but the narrative of like L2's eating the L1's lunch kind of goes away a little bit because, at least they're going to be paying for what they're using, which is just fair.
That's quite a lot of different EIPs that L2s do need to be aware of. And as I understand, because I've been tracking like the developer calls, there have been moments in the lead up to this mainnet upgrade for Fusaka where L2s were kind of caught off guard by these different EIPs and their impact. Specifically on the topic of like how PeerDAS, the main headliner feature, is going to impact them. And I think even before this call or this recording, which again we're recording like just 2 days before the upgrade, I think I saw someone from Offchain Labs asking in the Discord whether there would be kind of like a limit in the Geth client around how many blobs you can attach for your transaction to be even valid. And like kind of functionality there changing that was unexpected. Do you think L2s are prepared? Like, are you worried at all that there's going to be any L2s that, unexpectedly find that maybe they haven't updated their proofs for like KZG proofs for blob transactions and they should have, but they didn't, and kind of like this sort of like unexpected ways in which their operations may not work after the upgrade?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good question too. The blob transaction, like the transaction you do to purchase blobs, it does change, right? And so if you haven't supported that, it's not going to work. I think that L2, the way that we go about conducting these upgrades is that we update the test nets pretty well in advance, right? So I think like Sequoia was updated like over a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And I heard that's, when people found out for the first time, like, oh, my thing is going to break and I need to fix it right now because it's going to break. And then in mainnets in, a short amount of time. That's kind of the purpose of test nets. Like, maybe it certainly could be better communicated, saying like, here are the breaking changes coming up. I think the EF blog post did a pretty good job of outlining these. There are things changing with like opcode gas cost, and so they're like little tweaks that it's kind of hard to communicate every scenario in which this is a breaking change. People do really creative things. You can't predict all of it. For the major L2s, I'm confident that they are well aware of what's happening, and that when Fusaka activates, it's not going to be like, oh, your favorite L2 just stopped posting to the L1. I don't expect that to happen. Maybe it could, but I believe that the people running these operations are paying some attention, because it's we've been talking about it for a few months, and like it's been in the testnet for a little while, and like if you haven't been running your chain in a testnet for the last 6 weeks, then maybe you don't know, but people should know by now, right?
Hey, founders and developers. If you're looking to bring on-chain trading to your product, wallet, or platform, check out the new Uniswap Trading API from Uniswap Labs. It's your plug-and-play gateway to global on-chain liquidity. No deep crypto experience required, and no need to manage complex integrations or ongoing maintenance. With the Uniswap Trading API, you'll get enterprise-grade on-chain execution, combining both on-chain and off-chain sources for the most competitive prices. Simply put, more liquidity, less complexity. And this isn't just any API. It connects directly to the Uniswap protocol, which has securely processed over $3.3 trillion in total volume with 0 hacks. So stop worrying about liquidity infrastructure and focus on building your product. Get access to the same liquidity that powers billions in swaps through one powerful API. Visit hub.uniswap.org to learn more. Mantle leads the establishment of blockchain for banking as the next frontier. UR is the access layer that transforms Mantle Network into a purpose-built vertical platform, the blockchain for banking, that enables financial services on-chain. UR unifies and vertically aligns Mantle's focus on payments, trading, and assets. MI4, METH protocol, functions FBTC, supported by developer grants, ecosystem incentives, and the industry-leading distribution platform through the UR app, Reward Station, and Bybit launch pool. All economic activity within UR will be captured by Mantle Network to further drive value to token holders and establish its significance in blockchain for banking. Follow Mantle_official to learn more.
Okay, so L2s are prepared for the upgrade. They had over a month to prepare on those test nets, which is good. One other concern is, do you think that L2s are going to be able to use PeerDAS to its full capability because of the lack of features around PeerDAS as it relates to things like backfilling? I recently learned about this actually from a member of your own team, Preston. That backfilling is a really important feature that will allow nodes to retrieve data from blobs if they accidentally go out of sync with the network. And this is a feature that is not ready in all consensus layer clients, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, we think it's a really important feature. So backfill, what it means is, the typical way people bring a new node online is they sync from a checkpoint, usually the last finalized checkpoint, because that's really what you care about. You care about the unfinalized stuff that just recently happened. So when you start from the checkpoint, you don't have anything that happened before it. And syncing from Genesis is no longer viable. There are actually attacks you can do to trick people about what's happening with the state of the world. So, right, syncing from Genesis is not recommended. It also takes forever. We're actually running an experiment this month to see how long it takes, and I'm in like week number 3, so not recommended. But L2s, they need to retain these blobs, this data, usually forever. They kind of don't, they want to have all of the blobs since blobs existed, and they want to have all the data columns in PeerDAS since they existed. They want everything. So when you're thinking about bringing a new node online, what do you do? And there are techniques, make your own backups and whatnot, but how do you get it directly from the network? Well, you start from a checkpoint sync, and then you do an operation called backfill, which is going backwards from that checkpoint and filling in that data that you're missing. In particular, you want blocks and you want blobs and data columns. This feature, we've been working on at Prism for several months now. It's been under heavy review. It's been one of the biggest features we've ever implemented. And just over the holiday weekend, we were still putting in the time to get it working. And I'm happy to say that it works now. And that's going to be the next release, 7.1 for Prism. I'm sure other clients will have it soon, if not already. It's pretty important. But there's another part to this too. As I mentioned earlier, that you need 50% of data columns to reconstruct a blob, and a default client only retains 8 out of 128. So we have this other feature we're calling a semi-super node. And what it means is you'll retain exactly 50%. You don't need 100%. You could, but you just kind of like have redundant data in that sense. You could be a super node, which is just, I'm going to retain everything forever. I want it all. Maybe some of those people exist, but you actually only need 50%. So L2's, the recommended configuration is you can checkpoint stake with backfill, and you should be running this semi-super node flag if running Prism so that you retain enough blobs, enough for the data columns that you can query any blob that you want that you've already synced. That's pretty important when they want to recall the data. And if you only had the 8 data columns, you have to then go ask the network. And the network, the default for most clients is I'm only going to retain the data column for the minimum amount of time that I need to, which is 4,096 epochs. So if you want the historical data forever, you need to have something there. That in our case, that also turns off. I believe that would turn off any pruning because it's like at home staker. You really only you kind of want to push the limits of what's the minimum amount that I need. So you can actually delete old blobs and old blocks and old things after a certain point. But for the people that want it, semi supernode or supernode flags will be available soon, and you can retain all that data forever.
That's really cool to hear that those features are coming. And just to confirm, so these features are hard fork independent. Clients can just implement these features asynchronously from one another.
Yeah, all the building blocks will be there in Fusaka, and we're just stitching them together to say, if I start backfilling, which backfill already exists for blocks and blobs, but not for data columns. So that's the kind of tricky part, is like you need to go find, because like the way it'll work is you need to find a peer that actually has that data column, because the peers you have may not have it, and so you're kind of like sampling everybody to find it. And yeah, that's pretty much ready. We've been testing for weeks, and I'm finally happy with it. So we're going to ship it soon.
Do you wish, in hindsight, looking back, that you guys had more time with Fusaka, like had more time to prepare these features, test these features? Like, I think that was a big topic of discussion and debate throughout these last couple months. What's your take, Preston?
Well, more time comes at a cost. So if I could have time for free, I would take it. Right? Like we were certainly a little stressed at times, and even right now, everything's done, but it's still a little, kind of get a little nervous every time there's a hard fork. You've been testing it forever, and you feel really good, but it's just still a little nervous. There's a little nerves there. So a little more time would have been nice. Like I guess I expected that this was going to ship in January or like Q1. I thought it was a little silly to do anything in the holiday season. Like in the US, we just had Thanksgiving last week, and now we're in a hard fork, and then the end of year holidays are coming up, and people are taking time off to rest. So yeah, I would have liked more time, but what is the cost, right? Like Ethereum needs to scale, and needs to scale now. We have a lot of really exciting activity happening. People are like finally looking at Ethereum as like a legitimate place for real finance. So I hope that my peers were not feeling too stressed out. I empathize with you. This is another huge fork in a year in which we already had one. More time would have been nice, but we also need to ship and ship fast.
I was under the same impression as you, Preston. I totally thought this was going to be a Q1 upgrade, and then it just was not. Which, again, like you said, is not a bad thing so long as the upgrade goes smoothly and delivers on the impacts and the features that it's supposed to deliver on. One other kind of meta question around the shorter timelines for upgrades. I did notice there were a couple of clients, at least 4 in the last 7 days, that had to put out releases pretty last minute, close to the fork date. There was some discussion among developers of, how safe is it really to ask node operators to be upgrading to a critical fix just a couple days before the actual hard fork date, as in the case of the Nimbus client. Yeah, I mean, for clients that are shorter resourced, they don't have as many perhaps developers as the Prism team to be working on things in parallel. Do you think the shorter timelines for upgrades means less client diversity? Like smaller clients just will not be able to keep up or will be perhaps, yeah, like less tested, more buggy than the more well-resourced clients that are able to keep up with this faster development timeline?
Um, well, I would say that a release between the announcement of final releases and the mainnet releases or the mainnet upgrade time is pretty common. In fact, we would have issued one last week if we had backfill ready. There are some fixes in there, nothing like team urgent. Usually that stuff is found in testing, but we're constantly finding things that like to improve. This log message is confusing or there's no action to take. Trying to like make it easier to run, like, oh, maybe there was a bug with like something important, because all features are important or we shouldn't have them. There's some bug is something important, but it's not like critical to the safety of the chain. So those like really urgent ones like hotfix, or like if you found like a bug that would really, really mess stuff up, you need to get it out right away. And I think whether or not that's safe or not, it's kind of hard to say. Ideally you would want your client team to issue releases and quickly, and like when they find bugs, fix them. Like bugs happen. Like whether or not your team is large or small, it really does not have much in the way of like bugs, right? Like in fact, you can have too many cooks in the kitchen, which can be a bug risk, like where folks are no one's really sure what's going on because everyone has their like small piece of a puzzle they've been working on. So when they're like trying to, and then someone leaves on the team, and you're like, oh, I don't know how P2P works, or like I don't know how the database works. Like you kind of have risk there. When you have a smaller team, I feel like those folks sometimes can be more streamlined, and then like I kind of have a better understanding of everything, and look at you more closely and a bit more methodical. So it's not like a black and white of like a bigger team could go faster. It's not always the case. In fact, like we've over the years like always kind of fluctuated between like 6 and 10 people, and it's not a big difference between 6 and 10. Like we have more capacity to get things done, but there's so much like collaborate. Like if we had 20 people, I don't think we could get it twice as fast. It does help that we are able to split up a little bit and split the work and kind of get ahead. I think on our team, or in my personal experience, I feel a lot of pressure about being left behind. Like the scenario you described of like, oh, this client, minority or otherwise, is not going to have this feature in time. What if we ship without them? And that's just like a terrible feeling, right? Like you're trying to get your stuff done as fast as you can, and if people are like, oh, let's just leave without them and see what happens. So I feel that like kind of like pressure of like, oh, I need to get it done. And when you have that kind of pressure, sometimes you can have bugs happen. But I don't think that a minority client is inherently more risky than a majority client or a more well-funded client. It just kind of depends, just really depends.
That's a good point, though. Also, that a good point about the minority clients aren't necessarily the ones to move slower than majority clients. But it's also valid the concern around being left behind of some of the decisions around the timeline for mainnet was done, even though certain clients were not ready with their mainnet releases this time around. Looking back, is there anything at all that you think should have been done differently with Fusaka's mainnet preparations?
I don't know. I actually think this one was a pretty good one. I think this one went pretty well. So it seems we could have done differently. Like we have things in our team that we keep making the same mistakes, and a mistake being like, well, our problem is that we'll like make a big change, like I'll just implement Fusaka all at once, right? And then you ask someone to review it. You're like, dude, this is like 10,000 lines of code. Like, I don't want to review this. So if we have more time, I think people would take a little bit more to split things up and to make like smaller changes, and then like, those can go out more quickly, like piecemeal, get it done in piecemeal, and have more time for documentation. Although like really this fork felt like it was really well done. Like we learned a lot from that. Manu from our team, he's was our PeerDAS champion, and he written this like right away. He wrote this document, this wiki page. It's called PeerDAS.net, and I reference it all the time because I'm like, how does PeerDAS work again? Like I have to keep like recalling that information, and the fact that he took the time like up front to write this all down, it made review, implementation, testing so much easier this time, like because everyone kind of understood what's happening. And while Fusaka had the same amount of EIPs as Electra, I feel that the number of consensus changes were smaller. Like really there's one big one, which is PeerDAS, and then like deterministic proposal look ahead, some like small things that that, and where like Electra had like consolidations and all this like other big things that were like some refactoring that was really painful. Like it just touched way more of the consensus layer than PeerDAS does. PeerDAS is like, let this work on blobs. Just felt a lot easier this time. I don't know, and maybe that's why we're able to get it done in December and not in January.
That's surprising. I didn't know that it touched like less parts of the consensus layer and was perhaps easier to ship than the Electra upgrade. Because from my perspective, non-technical view, I'm like, oh, it's the same, like number of the IPs are similar.
Yeah.
And still, like you said, PeerDAS is a major shift. In the last couple minutes of our time together, I want to talk about what people should be looking out for in terms of mainnet activation. So we talked about its impact on L2s. We've talked about other EIPs and Fusaka, as well as the preparation process. And thank you for juggling my hard questions or have the timeline for it. But yeah, for our listeners that are going to be trying to, watch it happen live, what would you say is the best way to watch the Fusaka upgrade happen in real time?
Run your own node. And if that's not for you, there are like live streams, I think, like sort of the Ethereum YouTube channel is going to have something, surely something on Twitter Spaces, X Spaces, whatever you want to call it. Those are going to be places to be. Usually there's a call and someone sings a song sometimes. It's pretty fun. Like, I really do enjoy the actual fork when it happens, although it is a little stressful and we're always a little nervous. It's still a fun time to get people together and like see folks on the stream and talk about it, what it was. And then, the fact that we switched to a time-based system with proof of stake, we can schedule these things very reliably instead of waiting for a block difficulty. So it becomes a lot more fun that way. Yeah.
We'll definitely link the live stream into the show notes of this episode. I'll send over a couple of show notes to include for this episode. On the topic of your nervousness around Fusaka, like compared to, in terms of the technical risk, like the riskiness of Fusaka compared to prior upgrades, like how would you rank it? How like, are you more nervous this time, less, similar?
For this one, I'm less nervous in the sense that it touched a lot less of the software. And Electra had like changes to attestations and the beacon state and like a lot of different things. A lot more operations. This one was a little bit more simpler in this sense. I think that our friends at the ETH Panda Ops, these guys are doing incredible work testing and building confidence. So the more updates I see from them, I feel really good that our client is working well with other clients and they're testing it and they're giving us feedback constantly. So the systems that we have are constantly improving. So I feel pretty good. And the timeline that we have where we have months of testing, Fusaka's been live somewhere in a test net for months already and nothing bad has happened. So going to mainnet will feel very similar. Usually these events, the upgrade is very boring because nothing happens and that's the way it's supposed to be. So always nervous because there's, it could be a bug hiding somewhere, but we actually do, I think, a pretty good job of finding those well in advance and keeping the bugs out. So feeling good.
Good. I'm really hoping for a very uneventful evening on Wednesday myself. It's going to be like 5 p.m. local time for me, which is great because the merge, I think, was at like 4 a.m. Which is awful. Would you, I mean, obviously for me, some of the things I'm looking for is like network finalization after the upgrade. Are there any other kind of important indicators of a successful upgrade that you're going to be watching out for, either immediately after the upgrade or like a couple weeks or months after, to know that it was a hit?
Yeah. Well, we'll want to see right away that the new blob transactions are coming in. People are buying blobs. They're getting propagated through the network and they get saved to disk. That's going to be really key. That's the main feature. And then, of course, seeing that data finalize is kind of like the ultimate test, right? If we fork to Fusaka and there are no blobs at all, and it finalizes, that's kind of not quite the success metric. You need both. We need to see it finalize with the data that we're looking for. I expect it will be perfectly normal. Maybe there's an L2 that didn't update, so there's a slightly less volume of blobs coming through, but there will still be some, and we'll see it finalize. And it'll be interesting to see in the coming months when we do the blob parameter only updates. Like that's another exciting hard fork that will happen. And seeing the blob fee markets, stabilize around that. It's going to also be interesting to see how people are pricing blobs when those updates come.
Yeah, those are good flags for our listeners that want to keep tracking the upgrade even after it goes live. One last question on the blob parameter only hard forks that are going to be coming up after Fusaka. How on our toes should the Ethereum ecosystem be for those forks? Like if Fusaka goes well, do you think developers are going to have to be able to kind of rest easy over the holidays in between the blob parameter hard forks? Talk me through a little bit of the risk assessment of the BPOs that are coming up.
Yeah, I think if you're a node operator, like a validator, it's going to be a non-event for you. You'll want to maybe check in on your hardware usage the next day, kind of monitoring it. The thing is that when we increase the blob capacity, it's not going to fail spectacularly. You're going to slowly see your disk usage increase. So you'll kind of want to pay attention to that. Although the way I understand the math that we have now is that these updates are still at par with what you were operating today. So you shouldn't need to, go out and buy a hard drive right now. I think you're going to be fine. L2 operators will want to be monitoring those updates just to see the exciting drops in blob fees. They'll plummet right away when the capacity goes up significantly. That'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to need to update your clients. So, if things are working smoothly for you and you're not in need of these exciting features we discussed, of backfill, then you may not have to update your node for the rest of the year. And you can just kind of coast through in 2025 into next year.
Until the next Glamsterdam upgrade, which I'm sure we'll talk about when the time comes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Preston, for walking through the entire Fusaka upgrade with me on this episode of Unchained.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. It's been really fun.
Yes, and I hope everyone who is watching this guest episode of Unchained also found this episode very informational and beneficial to getting you guys prepared for what to be looking out for and expecting from the next major Ethereum upgrade, Fusaka, which will soon be a thing of the past. And thank you to the Unchained team for letting me take over for this episode. I wanted to note that if you want more regular deep dives on protocol development for Ethereum, I have a weekly podcast ready for merge. And I also have a bunch of newsletters on my Substack, christinedkim.substack. But yeah, so thank you everyone for listening. And thank you to Unchained for letting me host. Bye, everyone.